All right, I'll go. Andrew Lombardi, Mystic Coders. I don't know, what do you want me to say? I've been coming to Java 2 Days for 11 years.
You spoke enough. Let the other people talk.
Okay, fine.
My name is Chanol. It's my first time, and I just had a presentation. So I care about privacy.
Hi, my name is Shubho. Full name is Shubho Haldar. I'm from India. This is my first time in this conference. I run a company called AppNox. It's into mobile app security. And I've been giving talks in Black Hat and other security conferences about privacy and security. So yeah, happy to discuss in this panel.
Hi, my name is Yannis Kolaxis. I come from Athens, Greece. I'm a software architect and I work for Atos. This is my first time here in the conference and I enjoyed a lot. Yesterday I gave a talk about software quality and I also care a lot about security, privacy, and that's one of the main reasons I'm here.
My name is Ahmad Gohar. I'm working for IBM. I came from Egypt. I think it's my fourth or fifth times to be in Java 2 Days.
Hello, I'm Eva, the event organizer, and this discussion was my idea.
You want to start with the question for the speakers? Okay, so there are two aspects about privacy we can discuss. One is the developer aspect, like how do we write applications that, respect our users' privacy? And there is the second aspect, which is as users, what can we do to guard our privacy as much as we can? So I think we shall start with like one or two questions about the developer aspect. GDPR, we're in Europe, so we shall talk about GDPR a bit. So how should developers get, are developers, first of all, you think, responsible for learning GDPR and how to apply it, or this is more of the lawyer's job and developers should just execute whatever is told by their managers?
I think, so I think anything like GDPR, it's up to the developer to learn how to respond to things like that and how to develop for things like that. I don't think it's the developer's responsibility necessarily, but it's definitely in the interest of the company to make sure that they're doing things properly, because otherwise the company's going to have fines and what have you.
I don't think developers are responsible, but at least they should talk to someone who is knowledgeable in this sphere. What is interesting is that I see that companies who are using open sources are much better in developing software which is GDPR compliant. So that can be a way to go.
Again, I would agree with the same fact. It's not up to the developer, but the business has to have that mindset that data privacy is important. For developers, they can build features. I'll give one example. So in India, there is an application which gives you instant loan. And to give an instant loan, it basically checks your credit, your social credit. It reads all your messages, including the messages which has one-time passwords and your banking account details, and things like that. Which makes sense because they need to give you a loan with a high risk from their end, and they're going to give you a small time loan. But for that, they need to go through all of your profiles. So in that case, what can be done? So there is one thing which can be done is you need to give the control of your data back to you. So you should have the ability to delete those data even after you give those permission for the company for some valid reason to use your data, right? But the control has to be back to you, and this is a mindset of the company, but not the developer. Yeah.
When it comes to our job as developers, we must always question about the data that we store. According to GDPR, privacy by design is one of the main requirements. So we must always ask, do we really need to store all these data in our database, in our application? If we find out that some piece of information is not really necessary, then we should not store it. And then it's really important to make sure that all of our data is encrypted when stored, so that even a third party can steal the data. They will be useless to them. And last but not least, when we transmit data, they must always be encrypted too.
I think it's mandated for the development team to think about the privacy of the product that they are delivering, like that they will be one of the users of the product. So think about the privacy from the consumer perspective, not from the development perspective, because usually we, as a developer, especially the data guy, want to collect whatever information because it will fit in some places in the scope. But if you are like in the consumer side, you are thinking about the privacy of the data that you need to share.
Thank you.
I'm totally agree with Ahmad, and I would like to ask the speakers, what kind of mobile applications do they use, and how do they check if they are privacy compatible?
I think most of the mobile application, we agreed on the term of the conditions that it hacked our privacy.
Yeah, when it comes to using mobile applications, you more or less accept all the risks that come with sharing personal data. From the one point of view, we could say, no, we don't use any applications, we don't share any information. But on the other hand, we also need to be connected and take advantage of all the information that's out there in the internet. We need to somehow strive to keep a balance with the applications that we use, and to what extent our data, our private data, is being used and exposed by these applications. So knowing is key, knowing of all the risks and how our information is being used, is being leveraged by these applications.
Yeah, I agree with that, but at least the user need to be informed, and there's a very good thing which Android application has. It has a list of permission before you install an application. You can go through the list of permissions, you can deny the permissions which you don't want to give, and that's a very good way of taking the control back and denying the application not to give out the contact details or, I don't know, address book or SMSs access to the application. So as a developer, you should have a mindset to develop your application in a way where it can still work if such permissions are not provided. And again, it all depends on how the business looks at how you want to access the data and use the data, and then how you're going to destroy the data after using it. So yeah.
I think it should be much more easier for users to define in which way their data can be used and be apparent how to stop it. Because at the moment, it's not very easy for everyone to know all the ways that data is collected.
Uninstall Facebook, step one.
Did you?
I've had Facebook uninstalled for at least 3 years.
Applause for Andrew.
Don't applaud too much. I have Instagram on my phone. So, but uninstall that. At least for most things, turn off location services for everything. The only time you ever need that is for something like Uber.
Google Maps.
Or that,
Uber,
yeah, Google Maps, whatever. I mean, or you could just, let them figure out where you are. And install a VPN on your phone. So at the very least, whatever they're sending over the wire to all these ad companies is at least secure. You want to make sure you protect your ad companies too, right?
Thank you, Andrew. So to me, do you have any questions from the audience? Nobody wants to ask anything about privacy?
They do, but they're just keeping it a secret.
Can we fully trust password managers? Was the LastPass, OnePass, and the others?
Yeah, so when Andrew was talking about LastPass and OnePassword yesterday, you can actually Google search it. Last year, December itself, LastPass was hacked, and their vault was pretty much broken. So, or even when you were talking about VPNs, you know how many VPNs are getting hacked nowadays, right? So, yes, those are really good measures to make sure that your data is safe, you are accessing it properly, but still have some skepticism to use those applications. Uninstall Facebook, that's correct. Use the Facebook on browser, that's way better than using the Facebook app itself.
The answer is yes. Yes, you can. If you drove here in a car is not safe. A car is probably one of the most dangerous things you can ever do, but you still drive in one. It's better than a lot of different ways of transport. So, can somebody hack them? Yes. LastPass, as he said, has been hacked. I don't know that OnePassword has, but I would venture to guess if it hasn't, it will be soon. And VPNs, yes, they've been hacked. Does that mean you shouldn't use them? No. It means that you should pay attention when news sources come out and make sure that you're continuing to use things like this because they'll only get better. I would say 100% use one and make sure that you change your password on a regular basis. Most of those, they're encrypted, but encryption is not a panacea. It's not a be-all, end-all. You want to make sure that you're changing your password regularly. If you don't do that, then you're basically just asking for people to hack you.
Yeah, and just make sure you update all your security things. For example, if it's a VPN, make sure you get the latest update, keep it updated. Even LastPass, OnePassword. Even if these are hacked, but the companies are dedicated to provide you secure facilities and utilities, so they're going to make sure that the latest patch actually patches any security issues which is there. So make sure you keep on updating all of these applications, for sure.
Yeah, using a VPN and a password manager is like traveling through the internet on an airplane, which is 40,000 times more secure than the way most of us do it today, which is by car.
Okay, thank you for this. I can, sorry, I can add one more. You mentioned we should update and change our passwords. In this complicated world, it's almost impossible for one hand. Should we give control to password manager to generate our password, which can be memorized by human brain? Is it?
I would say yes. For most passwords, I would say definitely. And there are mechanisms for you to generate passwords, which are more like, so seven words is actually more difficult than the crazy uppercase, lowercase symbols and numbers that most people say is the most secure password. It's actually more often than not 6 or 7 words. And I'll give you one tip. Song lyrics are one of the best ways that you can use to generate a password. We all know tons of song lyrics, right? Yes. Use it.
It's a good advice.
She said it was a good advice, guys.
So now we know that Andrew likes few songs. What's your favorite song?
I take the Fifth Amendment in order to not incriminate with.
Any more questions from the audience?
Yes, there is one. So you say that you cannot trust location services because they intentionally want to track you and do you harm, but you say that VPN services and password managers will never intentionally track your passwords and your activities. What about these services as well as services like Ditto, which make you a history of your 10 copied things before, I think they copy them and send it to a central server, for example. Why do you think they are safe?
So I think what you were saying was that can we trust VPNs and password managers not to copy our information and send it up?
Yes, if location services do it intentionally to track your data, why don't VPN services do intentional harm to you as well?
Well, you are the most untrustworthy person ever.
You are on the stage and I'm on the audience, so you're more untrustworthy.
No, I agree with you. Does anybody want to speak to that?
Can I add something about location services? If you use E, you don't have to use Google Location Services. You can use Mozilla Location Services, which is at least a little bit better and open source, so that might help. And also, if you want a password manager, you can choose one, you can just download it, something which is open source, and you can read the code, and you can use it to generate passwords if you are afraid that some company may lose your passwords, just do it on your computer.
Yeah, there are a lot of open source softwares. If you're really skeptical, which I am, so I have my own password manager which I created. It's in my GitHub, but don't use that. It's for my own self. But yeah, if you're really skeptical, there are tons of open source password manager. You can go through the source code. You can install it in your PC, laptop, whatever. It'll have a backup password which you need to write it down in a piece of paper, print it out, keep it safe in case you're migrating your PCs or laptops. If you're really skeptical about password managers, that is. Yeah.
I think the actual question was not if you're really skeptical, but we are now telling people to install password managers and VPNs. And how is that better than just not installing them and letting them the other things track us? Like, what's the difference between being tracked by a VPN versus being tracked by location services? Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Being tracked by VPN, both are bad, I would say. But again, like I have my own VPN, right? I know it's OpenVPN which I use, right? So I know that I'm not going to track mine. The reason why we're saying that at least use a VPN is you may want to take that one more step and create your own VPN servers and use it, or else you can pay someone and get a VPN software and keep your finger crossed. At least the data is collected by one single provider, and if you're not using VPN, probably all the different apps of all different providers are getting collected through all different countries who are tracking you with, it's a mess. Everyone knows where you are rather than one company. I think that's a very bad answer, but yeah, it again comes back to how much skeptical you are. So yeah, I am. So I have my own VPN server implemented, OpenVPN. Yeah.
That's actually a really easy thing to do, is to set up on DigitalOcean an open VPN. There's images out there if you really think about it. But the reason why you would do that, or to use VPNs or password managers, is that you use protection for a lot of things in your life. You wouldn't have sex without protection, but you can. Both work. But the safer way, and it's not the 100% effective way, but the safest way is to use protection.
97.99%.
More questions from the audience?
Yes, hello, I have one question. Given your diversity of experience, have you ever discussed on a global level the issue of the positive of invading privacy when it's such a rescue operation for lost people in the wilderness, when any information like the last positioning or even communication of a missing person would be beneficial? Have that been discussed in crisis situations, or especially even given the tragedies, the earthquake in Albania, for example, when the government can take over or emergency services can invade, in quotations, our privacy. So the beneficial aspect would be to be able to find people by this geo positioning or whatever.
So I think the question was, wouldn't having location services on help when you get stuck?
Yes, for example, like
in the mountain?
Yeah, like in Google in the previous presentation, if they not only to see your positioning because to sell you advertising, to say, okay, this guy was between, especially with the GSM, you know, you can have GSM triangulation, but also even communications can give you a lot of hints, especially when terrorist attacks, that could be another issue. Either for life-saving or for security purposes. I'm sure that maybe in the United States, the Homeland Security has already, or the NSA implemented things. Well, Snowden already mentioned that, but what about for search and rescue organizations?
I think we need very clear lines of how this can be used. Like, yes, it would help to find someone, for example, if you need, but maybe then you can have this data for one person, but without knowing who it is. So if we have good rules which can protect the users, and the data still can be used for useful tasks, that's okay.
Yes, but have you ever heard this to be discussed on a global level?
No, I haven't met Trump or someone.
Okay, so I guess this is Innovation Center, so maybe that's another topic. Thank you very much.
I'd say one thing though. You mentioned security, and you mentioned search and rescue. I think that privacy is it's hard to say, because the public good is what people will say when you talk about security. Shouldn't we want to find the person that is possibly wanting to do harm to some region of our country or some part of the world? And the answer is not always 100%, because you don't know. It's a slippery slope because the data that any of our intelligence organizations have may be faulty and maybe not. Maybe they're telling us that because they want to extend the powers that they have. I like all these things. All the organizations that are doing work in intelligence and in securing our countries are doing wonderful and honorable work. But also, after 9/11 in the US, the powers that got extended went way too far. It went way too far, and we were, everybody in Europe probably laughs at the Americans who have to take off their shoes when they go through airport security because somebody tried to fit a shoe bomb in a shoe, and we've not let it go. And we have TSA, which is basically security theater. I think with search and rescue, there's a lot of options there, and it's a really hard question to actually answer because nobody's gonna like the response from at least half of the people.
For security issues, for law enforcement, there's already established rules. If you suspect that somebody is doing something wrong, you go to a court, you get an order, and then you start following him. You don't go get all the data for all the citizens, and then when you need, you just go through the database. That's the difference.
What I had in mind is that something like scanning, for example, I mean, of course we do with different cultural issues because one religion may, for example, the Eskimos, the older elderly people, they send them away when they're too old. But let's say there's a situation, you have high-tech equipment, and you can see first how many signals there are by cell phones. Let's say if that's one thing, and I don't know if the RF transmitting or any ways to even, I've heard that not just because what Snowden said, but that there are ways to activate the reserve power or something, some tricks. Something that's not so, can be used on location. Then there, of course, should be some ethical, religious, and practical issues to be considered, but to be made the protocol, you know, when it always comes to the benefit of society or for life saving.
If you put a backdoor in anything that gets developed, it will get exposed to the people that you don't want to have it. So while it may not be the most the best answer, like I fully support that Apple would not give or would not provide a backdoor to the FBI when they were looking for the terrorists that happened in San Bernardino. I live an hour away from San Bernardino. I should be scared of the fact that Apple wasn't doing that. But it's an acceptable risk, and I agree with their position. I think we should use any methodology that we can that is available to us and is legal within the law. But if I don't want you to know what's on my phone, or I don't want you to know where I am, I think without a court order, I don't think you should be able to have any of that information.
Yes, I agree with that. That's why it should be mutual consent, provided that the person give away that right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So we are discussing now how we should make sure that people are not tracking us, companies are not tracking us. Let's first discuss why is it bad that companies are tracking us? Like what is that we are losing in a sense? What's the wrong side of tracking?
All right, that is really interesting question. Okay, there are two phases to tracking, right? For a company, they track because they want to optimize their services much more better. I mean, if you're running a company, most probably you will be using analytics, Google Analytics, to figure out how many visitors are coming. You also want to see from which place they are coming. You also want to see how much time they have spent. And then probably you want to dig a little bit more deeper because now you want to convert these visitors into, customers. So now you're going to try to figure out the email addresses, inject cookies, figure out the usage patterns. Now I understand that, but that's my data, which you are using it to make it more optimized experience for me. So for few websites, for few services, I'm okay with that. So that's the point where the mutual agreement comes into the picture. Like the company should ask me, am I really looking at the website just so that I can buy it? Or should I allow the cookies to track me? And things like that should be mutually agreeable between the company and us. And what we are giving out is basically our personal information, our habits, via which they can duplicate a similar looking people and steal identity and things like that. They can do all of those things. But yeah, that's if we go into the bad direction, the malicious direction. But at the end, if I know that this website is going to track me, and I want them to track me because I probably will buy their services, probably I just want a few discounts, I don't know. I might click on OK, just take me through the journey which you have created for me. Or else I would say cancel. I don't want to share my data. So it's always that. You want to add something?
Yeah, this reminds me of all the warnings we get when we visit a web page. Do you want to accept cookies? Most of us just automatically press yes. What happens when we press no? I advise you to try this just for a few days, and you will find out that many of the websites will be malfunctioning. So first of all, we are all developers. We are in the IT industry. As mentioned previously, we should design our systems, our information systems, so that we respect the user's choices, not to track what they're doing, not to store any cookies on their computers, and make sure that our applications perform equally well. As users, we must also demand that when we use such applications, that these applications respect our choice not to share our personal information, not to be tracked, and still be able to use them effectively.
I think until we have reached such a level of application maturity for doing that, I think it will be like a pros and cons. For every and each site you are entering, that you are making your metrics to take it or leave it, because most probably till now, if you say no, you'll get out of the site or you'll have malfunction site. So it will be like an individual assessment. If I gain a benefit from that tracking, so I'll press OK and accept. If not, I can say no and get that information or that service from another one that may accept that.
How many here would pay $5 a month for Facebook? How about YouTube? How many of you would pay any money for those sites that you don't pay any money for right now? The answer is 3 of you. These companies have been wonderfully magnificent, and maybe some of you have actually put this technology into place. The only reason why these companies are so good at tracking us and getting our data is it's because it's profitable. It's the only path to profitability that they could figure out. So while I have ad blockers and VPNs and all kinds of things because I'm a smarter user and I know how to do a lot of that stuff, and I will definitely hit no a lot of times on, do you want to track me with cookies? Which I know is just a little bit of text, and I could just delete them anyway. None of you would pay for any of these services. You are the product, folks. How do you expect these guys to pay for their millions and millions of dollars of hosting fees and whatever? And I'm not saying you should say, poor Facebook. Poor Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google. How are they going to do their business? But this is how they figured it out. Because ad companies will pay money for your data. So the only reason why, now they might have developed this stuff also, but for me, you'd have more of a leg to stand on with these companies if you said, I'll give you $5, make sure that you protect all my data. Who here pays for Netflix? Anybody who uses it, unless you're stealing it from your friend or your parents, which people do. But if you're not willing to pay for those services, you better be willing to invest and figure out how to get around the stuff that they're using to track. Don't be upset about it. That's how they're using it to make money. So all the people that don't know how to do the things that you know how to do, teach them. And if enough people block this stuff and make it so incredibly difficult, you may have to pay $1 for Facebook when 7 billion people are using it. That's the option, folks. That's how I see it anyway.
Well, this is one of the reasons why password managers and VPNs are, in a sense, more trustworthy, because you have to pay for them, and you pay them not to sell your data. And to Google and Facebook, you don't pay them to sell your data. So in one case, you agreed for them selling your data, and in the other case, you pay them not to. Of course, they can still sell it, but in the other case, it's like 100%.
Yeah, I would say the password managers and VPNs, now some VPNs not, but most password managers are very well researched by a lot of companies out there. I'm not saying they're 100% wonderful, they're not, but people are paying attention. And because people are using them and charging money, there's security people out there that are paying attention to the quality of what's going on, and if there's any slip-ups, they're making sure that they're at least more secure than writing it down next to your laptop, which some of you are doing, I can tell. I'm kidding.
Last question from the audience.
Yes, right. They're going to still track you. It's just that they won't show you an ad, probably. So, yeah. So for Google, they actually earn a dollar amount for each person who are using it. Like you can go to history.google.com, and have you ever used Google Assistants? Like, hey Google, what's the weather? Do you know it actually?
It's really cold.
Yeah, but they record all of those. But the good thing is you can actually go to history.google.com and you can view all the snippets of recordings which it has recorded via your phone. It also has snippets of all the searches, all the locations where you have been. It even checks your mail and figures out that you've ordered pizza and this was the amount of the receipt. And it's going to be there in history.google.com. You can basically go there and check that. So I was afraid because it was reading my email and understanding that I've ordered food, like pizza, and I don't know what it's trying to do. Probably it's just trying to recommend me to buy pizza next week for the same time. But yeah, that's how it is. It figured out my father's birthday, my parents' anniversary, and it's like there is something called Google Home. It reminds you basically that, oh, don't forget to buy flowers for your parents. And I'm like, how did you get to know that? Because it reads my email also. So if you think Gmail is, nothing, they do read the emails inside the Gmail also. But the good thing is you can see what they have accessed. It's not a good thing though, but at least you know what are the things they have accessed. And yeah, so that's all I can say about that.
That scares the crap out of me. They've designed an entire website to show you how much they're tracking you.
Yes.
Which is awesome and amazing and a technological feat, but also, oh my God. Think of, if everybody paid Google, think of what they could do with that brain power. Maybe they could solve things that we actually care about instead of, making sure his parents get flowers for their anniversary, which is a noble task. And you ask, if you gave Twitter $5, would they protect your data? They would if enough people blocked the things that were making them money and provided no other method. We have to force them to do this. We have to, if we like the service, we have to provide a path to monetization for these companies. They have to make money. This is not a public service. If it was a public service, you'd have to wait 3 days for a tweet to go through. We all know this. So if we make it really hard for these companies to do their job, to make money, they'll figure out a different way to make it. And maybe it will be, hey, if you just do this, which doesn't affect your privacy, and give us money, we promise that we'll do this. I'm not saying that this is a reality that we live in today, or that we may never. The Pandora's box has been opened. It's easier for a doctor to prescribe you medication for diabetes than for him to tell you to just change the way you eat. We're humans, we like to do things the way we do them, and we don't like change. So if you're using Twitter and Instagram and Facebook in the way that you're using them, you're probably not going to change. And they know that. So the answer is yes, but because probably 9 people out of 10 in this room will not do it. And no judgment. Probably most of the people on this panel would not do it either. That's the reason why it won't ever work. But it's still the reason why they're selling your data. It's why they figured it out. And you know, I still think we shouldn't be too upset with these companies that they figured out a way to make money.
Because we gave them no other choice.
Because we what?
Didn't give them another choice.
Well, they didn't really ask us, maybe. They didn't really say, hey, are you going to pay for this? Somebody decided that freemium was a good idea, and then somebody said, well, why don't we just make it free? And then people started getting gaga over, well, there's 2 billion Facebook users. That must be worth something. There's 3 billion Facebook users. That must be worth something. And the truth is, it is. Not to you. I remember a day when you actually had to pick up the phone and call somebody and you actually knew their number. And you didn't say, hey, Siri. No? Sometimes that works. So you're paying for convenience and you're paying for it with one of the most fundamental human rights, which is your privacy. And we're all doing it. I'm doing it just as much as everybody on this panel. We're all giving you some good information, some good advice. Everybody's giving you amazing advice up here. But most of us are not doing it at 100%. Otherwise, we'd have a tinfoil hat on, and we wouldn't be anywhere near technology because we're afraid that the Wi-Fi signals will be able to triangulate where we are all the time, even though we don't have a phone and you know, we don't have anything electronic on our body.
Closing words?
Just maybe an idea for the future. It's a problem. We don't want to pay, and we don't want our data to be gathered. But maybe a solution would be when in the future we can pay a really tiny amount of money for the service we get. For example, if you can pay 1 cent for a service and you know that your data won't be used, why not? If we have the technology and we can pay really tiny amounts of data and millions of users pay, that's sustainable.
So I have a little bit different view. So I have YouTube Pro. I pay for YouTube, by the way. But let's say I'm listening to a song, and the next recommended song, since it didn't track me, would not be a recommended song, right? But I want, if I'm listening to a music, my next music should be at least for the same genre, right? I need that. It cannot be an English music and then suddenly some other language, and because it's not going to play random music. Or let's say I use Spotify. I pay for Spotify, right? Now, it knows my moods. It knows when, what should I want to hear, right? So I think payment is not the only thing. The mindset has changed. I understand your point that initially that's how people were trying to figure out how can I make money without the user paying us anything. But now it has changed how I can use the data to make sure the user sticks around in my platform forever. And that's why I keep paying Spotify, because I really like the music suggestion they give me. But have you ever thought that even if we pay them $9 or I don't know, 10 euros over here, and they're still tracking my location, they're still trying to figure out at what point of time in the day I like what kind of music. I can do a psychometric analysis. I can figure out whether the guy who's listening to the music is sad, angry, happy, emotions, things like that can all be figured out, right? My point is, you may track it, but you should give the control back to the user. Do you show it to the user that we are tracking it, and this is what we are tracking it? And there should be a control with GDPR got into the place, the compliances got into the place where I have the ability to delete the data which has been tracked for me till now. So if tomorrow, if I want to leave Spotify, I have no idea whether the data is still going to be there in their servers about when I would listen to what kind of music. Because probably it's going to be there in the server, because if I sign up for Spotify after a year, it's still going to show me probably relevant musics. So, so that's where the compliances comes into places. Yeah, I can't imagine a world where there is no tracking at all, and yet relevant contents are being delivered to you without tracking. So there has to be a balance. It's a very thin line of balance. You should know what to track. You should know what not to track. You should know what control you need to give back to the user so that they can delete it. Or, you need to have those ethical choice while tracking.
Thank you. One more sentence.
As a call for action, I would say that you all check the applications that you have installed on your smartphones, and as a first step, try to disable all the tracking of information, such as tracking your location, and see how it works for you. In my case, I replaced all the web browsers that I had with some alternative ones that promised not to track anything. And indeed, they did a great job. I was looking, for example, for a restaurant in Athens, Greece, but the results that came were about restaurants in the USA or in India. So in my case, I found out that this was not really convenient to me, so I had to share my location so that the search results from the search engines would be the ones that I needed, the ones that would suit my needs. You are the ones who should know what your needs are. Try to customize your applications. Look for alternative ones when it comes to web browsing, when it comes to emails. There are many alternatives that promise to be more secure, to protect your privacy, and see if they are fit for you.
Every and each company shall decide the value stream from gaining money, right? But me as a user, I have to take the decision to share or not to share whatever I need to share according to the benefit from that application. Like you mentioned, some or more than one application we usually use. If we stop the tracking feature, that application will be like a useless or getting a fuzzy result. So make your own selection.
Thank you. Thank you to our speakers.